Happy Saturday, and welcome to the Leadoff on the Peak One Sports Network, brought to you by Apogee Grafix, taking your vision to new heights. Go to apogeegrafix.com and use promo code Peak1 for 10% off your order. I'm Ashton with Tony and Landen, again here in studio, ready to get you ready for your sports weekend. What's going on, guys?
What's going on?
So you have a lot of stuff going on today.
Yeah, I've got a little, I think still a little hangover from Friday Night Football on Thursday night.
Just to be clear,
All the excitement.
like an emotional hangover, not an actual hangover. High school football can't, obviously, you never know.
You know what I meant.
Yeah, I know what you know. I for sure know what you meant. I just want to make sure we've had, issues we've had in the past with some Karens. We for sure just want to make that clear. But yeah, it was just a scrimmage, but just getting back in the booth and calling those games, especially the setup we have now, the way we're doing things, our operations, it was definitely by far better than I thought it was going to be. I mean, I was confident that it was going to be okay, but just overconfidence, just looking for that next level stuff right now. Like how, what can we do? Like it just want to improve and, get it out there more. And, thanks to everybody who was involved, pretty well rated game audience wise for a scrimmage.
Yeah, a lot of positive feedback.
A lot of positive feedback.
A lot of stuff we can build on in the future, but for sure it exceeded expectations.
Yeah, I think we're bigger critics of ourselves than anybody else. And, I think all around we were pretty stoked about it. So as soon as you're done watching this episode of the Leadoff, go over and check out the scrimmage on Friday Night Football. I think more people are watching it after the fact than did live. It just, numbers keep growing, and appreciate it. Again, thank you for listening. However you're tuning in, whether YouTube or however you listen to podcasts. We'll be talking Cowboys, talking a little bit off season for the NFL, and a new John Madden movie in the works. But first, say goodbye to unruly behavior and hello to a well-mannered pup. The Dapper Dog Academy stands out as a top-notch canine training institute located in Cleburne and serving the DFW Metroplex. You can contact Korri at the Dapper Dog Academy on Facebook or call and schedule a consultation today. All the info is in the description box below. All right, I feel like we've talked about this on every show on Peak One for the last few weeks, but we're finally getting some movement on the CeeDee Lamb contract negotiations. The Cowboys have offered star receiver CeeDee Lamb a new deal, slightly under the $33 million per year salary. The current offer would make Lamb the NFL's second highest paid wide receiver, just behind Justin Jefferson, who makes $35 million. As we've been talking about, this is kind of what CeeDee Lamb has been looking for, I think. He said multiple times he's not looking to be the highest paid receiver. He just wants something close to Justin Jefferson's deal. And that's exactly what this is. Now, as much back and forth as there's been, I don't know how much strain there's been between CeeDee Lamb and the Cowboys organization, Jerry Jones. We just know CeeDee Lamb has been holding out for a while. Jerry Jones has made comments to the media. Don't know how much strain there is. So, if he offered this deal 2 weeks ago, I think CeeDee Lamb snatches it up. Now, I have no reason to believe CeeDee Lamb's not going to take this deal. But I know, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, to be the second highest paid receiver in the NFL is pretty good for him.
Yeah.
I think he's a top 4 at best.
Yeah.
Of course, that only makes him second until maybe Jamar Chase gets his deal done. He's holding out as well. That he probably ends up being the second highest paid, or the Bengals might mess around and make him the highest paid. I don't know, but I mean, Tyreek Hill too. He just got a deal.
Yeah.
And all 4 of those guys top 4. But I think of those 4, CeeDee's probably hanging around that 3 or 4. Maybe him and Jamar kind of fighting it out for that 4th spot of current players. I think this deal is a good deal for him.
For sure.
I think if he has any issues with this, the Cowboys may have other issues that he's getting greedy. And
yeah. If he doesn't take this, I'm feeling it's more all the stuff that's gone down the last couple of weeks. I mean, CeeDee Lamb hasn't.
It got personal.
Yeah, he hasn't been saying anything. He hadn't been vocal. He has, unfollowed the Cowboys on Instagram. I think that's just a negotiation tactic. Posting the picture of him and Hollywood Brown on his social media, which Brown did the exact same thing. You mentioned Jamar Chase, who is holding out. I think if the Cowboys and CeeDee Lamb get a deal done in the next week or two, everything's going to be fine. If they don't, I think CeeDee Lamb still reports week 1. He's still going to play this season, but I think it's going to cost the Cowboys a lot more at the end of the season just because you put so much strain on the relationship. And who knows, by the end of the season, Jamar Chase is probably going to have a new deal. Zay Flowers is probably going to, I mean, this is just his second year, but, if he has another good season, why isn't he asking for a deal? Why wouldn't the Ravens just up him and avoid all this? Puka Nacua is going to be up for a new deal, or should be not up for a new deal, but is probably going to have another good year. And the Rams might just go ahead and extend him. And if you wait, and Justin Jefferson at $35 million a year may not be the highest paid, may not be the mark. You may have, I don't know, $40 million. It sounds weird to say or crazy to say, but we're looking at these quarterback contracts, and, $35 million for a quarterback 3 or 4 years ago seemed crazy. Yeah. And now you're talking $60-70 million for a quarterback.
The difference, I think, with the receiver, though, is that with this air-it-out offense that most all NFL teams run now, is you don't just have one receiver. One receiver you're paying that much money to doesn't have that much impact. Down the stretch, yes. In the red zone, yes, he's the go-to guy. But overall, you're not throwing to him every single play like a quarterback handles the ball every single play. You really need that cap space to spread it out and bring in a couple pretty solid receivers. Because we've seen it in the past. One really good receiver gets nixed when you can double team him, you can roll coverage across him. That it nixes how his impact on, and then that's when you see these Puka Nacuas, not taking anything away from his talent. When you focus your defense, your secondary, to one receiver,
when Cooper Kupp is injured,
when somebody's going to get left open, or somebody, So,
but we see the formation, or the, I mean, the right terms to use, but we see how it works in the NFL, where to be successful outside of being the Chiefs and having Patrick Mahomes, which I would consider, Travis Kelce more of a wide receiver than a tight end. He's just kind of being ridiculous too, but you almost need that star or borderline star number 1. Then you need a number 2 who would probably be a number 1 on half the teams in the NFL. And then maybe even in number 3, that's probably a number 2 receiver. Mm-hmm. As opposed to having a star wide receiver and having a couple of solid wide receivers back. I mean, we saw this Cowboys team for a year have Amari Cooper, Gallup, who just retired, and CeeDee Lamb for a year. And it worked out really well, more or less. I mean, I think Cooper was kind of on his down trajectory here. But that's kind of the lineup you need to be really successful, assuming you don't have a Tom Brady at quarterback or a Patrick Mahomes. If you have that 5 to 15 range is where I kind of throw Dak Prescott in. He could be, your 6th, 7th best quarterback. I mean, hell, last year he finished 2nd in MVP statistics. We're talking statistics. And then, with the playoffs comes around, he's probably around the middle of the road quarterback. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's just going to get more and more expensive. And, the Cowboys, traditionally wait too long and pay players more than they probably could have gotten them earlier. Hindsight's 2020.
Yeah. Well, in the NFL, when you're signing the way the positions work, where receivers are in a certain market and everything's gauged on, well, this guy got paid this, I rank up to him there. That's the thing, like you were just talking about with Travis Kelce. Tight ends, he's severely underpaid
because
for his production, but because he's a tight end, tight ends only command was it like years ago? Jimmy Graham said, "Hey, I want to be my position to be switched to a wide receiver because I want to be paid like one. Changing my position, I don't want to be a tight end any longer."
Yeah, especially when you're talking about franchise tagging. When you franchise tag a player, they just take what position he is, and he gets the average of the top five.
Yeah.
The top five at that position, so that affects it. You talked about, not in this episode, but we've talked about, gosh, I'm bad with names. Running back, wide receiver, or really wide receiver who the 49ers use as a running back.
Debo.
I keep wanting to say Metcalf. Very similar.
Debo Samuel.
Yeah, Debo Samuel, who they went through contract negotiation issues
It's like,
because
what position do you pay me for?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, hey, I should probably be making both. And, you know, you could even go to Shohei Ohtani when we talked about that. Like, hey, you should probably pay him for a hitter and a pitcher. I mean, it's not going to happen, but that's going to. But, see, you know, if the relationship's strained and they don't get the deal done before week one, you know, I don't think CeeDee Lamb comes back. I think you would have to severely overpay him for him to come back because I think he'd be pretty much done. I think, not that he's taking a player-friendly deal here. Like, this is a really good deal for both sides. I think it's, you know, level up. I think
it's a fair deal.
A fair
where
deal.
The market's going to shake out. I mean, you have to look at Justin Jefferson being the top-paid guy here. He's the top producer in this group, but he also took his deal earlier, so he's going to get passed up. Like, his deals will get.
I think that was probably the smartest move that was made last season, was the Vikings re-signing him, because really, when you think about it, he's not making that, like, it's $35 million, but they didn't sign him for that much if you think about it. He's a top receiver in the league 3 years in a row.
Yeah, I mean, in 2 years, he's probably going to be demanding a restructure.
Yeah.
Because he won't be the top paid. He probably may not even be in the top 10 paid receivers. But you're right. That was a great move by the Vikings. Like you said, Cowboys wait too long to get guys locked in.
Yeah.
Of course, it's how you manage your cap. They haven't had the cap space.
And when you sign them early, you can mess around with the cap numbers and push them off. Like Patrick Mahomes didn't have a big cap hit for a couple of years.
Yeah. Miami, also in that conversation, signing Tyreek Hill. I know they signed him to a lot of money for a long time, but all of his is guaranteed. But they have him for like 10 years.
I think it's the way that these guys are structuring, and maybe this is exposing the old school Jerry Jones. Yeah. It just doesn't know, you know, not saying he doesn't know how to work this cap system, but
and maybe numbers.
The Cowboys are always suspect about that.
And maybe the money isn't necessarily where they've had their issue, because we see it with Dak is money, you know, per year is not the main issue there. It's how long the contract is. Cowboys want a 4-year contract or longer. Dak wants like a 2-year contract, because we see this TV money every couple of years switching, and they, you know, I want to be up for a new contract. Whereas you even see Devontae Smith getting a new deal just a couple of years. Like, even signing him early doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to have to pay him again in a couple of years. But I think it keeps them happy. I think it keeps from the, you know, stuff like this. Like, overall, if they get the deal done this week, or even, you know, today, I don't know, that they Cowboys met with CeeDee Lamb's reps on Thursday, and they're looking to get an agreement done soon. So who knows? It could be any day now. You know, I think it's a non-issue, assuming CeeDee Lamb, you know, has a really good year, and he's not, you know, if he starts off slow, we'll talk like we did with Zeke, like, oh, is he out of shape? Is it this or that? But if he has a normal year, this is a non-issue. We'll never talk about it again. But he doesn't get that deal done, and he gets pushed off further and further. The money goes up, because it's the same as Dak is. If Dak doesn't get a new contract in the offseason, why would he? Even if he wants to be a Cowboy, why would he negotiate anymore? It's like, let's just wait till next offseason. Then you can see what
test the market.
The Raiders want to pay me, what the Saints want. I see, you know, looking at it could change in a year, but looking at the teams that might be available for a quarterback, might want to pay Dak. You know, I think Cowboys are probably still the best option for him, unless, you know, I think the Giants might be in that camp.
Yeah.
The Giants, you know, could pay him $75 million. I mean, we saw Kirk Cousins get a ridiculous deal. Yeah. And, you know, I think Dak Prescott, Kirk Cousins are very comparable, but I think Dak is a little more flashy and has had, you know, more on the field success in the regular season. I think he could push those ridiculous numbers. I don't want to see the Cowboys have to pay him that much money, but Dak will be like, okay, I want to play for the Cowboys. Come out, bid everybody. You don't know. I mean, they're obviously teams off that. I mean, you would think Atlanta would be interested, but who knows? They sign Kirk Cousins and then spend a number 8 pick. Who knows where they'll be? But
yeah, I think there are actually a lot of teams that would, excuse me, be a good fit for Dak.
I think every team would be interested, but not every team obviously needs
It'll
a quarterback.
come down to the numbers for sure.
It worries me that Jerry Jones might try to outbid people for Dak, though.
Well, that's my thing. I mean, overall, I don't want to see the chaos on the Cowboys and go into that quarterback purgatory. I would we have a good team. You have a chance. I don't think that, honestly, I don't think they're going to have as good a year this year as they did the last few years. I don't expect them to make a run in the playoffs, but they do have a good team. So my thought is just screw it. Get a deal done with Dak. Let's run this back for a couple more years before we just blow it all up, which the problem is they won't blow it up. They'll just stay mediocre and let's just rip the Band-Aid off, blow it up. But if you can get Dak for $60 million right now, it's kind of the running number. If you let him get to next offseason, there's no way he signs with the Cowboys for $60 million.
And there's no reason to pay $80 million for a quarterback that can't win in the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly. But that's our mindset. Like, I know nationally that's the that's what everybody's saying too. But I think as a fan base, you get tired of your player more quickly, and you have more negative view of him, as another fan base might be like, hey, that's a really good quarterback. Look at the Saints since Drew Brees has left. Look at the Raiders since when's the last time they've had a good quarterback? Look at a lot of franchises that would take a chance like, hey, he's talented. I don't know what happens in the playoffs, but it's not like he forgets how to play football.
Yeah.
Give him a change of scenery. Maybe, I don't know, Dak Prescott's talked about mental health issues. This is a tough place to play for football. Not quite as worse as maybe Philadelphia, or New York. I think DFW's a pretty laid back place in most sports, not necessarily football. The media is pretty rough. The fans are pretty rough, but you put him in a small market where the pressure's off. Maybe he excels even more. And you can see, he can be one of the best quarterbacks in the league on any given day. You see that stat, and then all of a sudden it's just not working.
Yeah.
But back to Lamb, hopefully the deal gets done. Hopefully they don't have to pay too much. He's already paying more. I think Jerry Jones could have, paid $5-6 million.
Well, you talk about Lamb, you've got Dak,
and then
forget about Michael Parsons.
We're gonna have this conversation next year about or probably this year leading up to the end of the season. But this is the exact same conversation we're gonna have next year if they don't just go ahead and sign Micah Parsons, because I think he'll probably hold out.
I think Jerry is a betting man. Like you said, he will wait too long and have to overpay a guy, but he's willing to hedge his bets and see if he can't get a really good deal.
Which hasn't maybe you're talking about
really worked out for him.
The new style of the NFL. He couldn't have gone his whole life doing this, and he likes to say deadlines make deals. He's right, they do, but it hasn't been in the Cowboys' favor. Yeah. The Ezekiel Elliott, that was not in the Cowboys' favor. For the first year, I don't necessarily think he was overpaid because he was still an actor. But by the fourth year when he was doing nothing and getting, $15 million, and the Cowboys are still paying. Well, I don't know they're paying, but it's hitting the cap with his old contract. We saw the first contract with Dak. He was willing to sign for $30 million or $32 million. They said no. He goes out, has a really good year, ends up getting hurt, but and then they, you have to make a decision that he ends up getting $40 million, and then it just keeps getting restructured. Now you're in a situation where you can let him walk, but you're still going to pay a $60 million dead cap hit not to have him play.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. If you just sign him for $60 million. Same cap hit, you just have the player. I know it's not exactly that clear or that simple. But another player too, who's still in negotiations, which we thought was done, was Brandon Aiyuk. Heard late last night the 49ers are still in contract negotiations with Aiyuk. I thought he was going to Pittsburgh. I thought he was going there. The Steelers are on standby with that offer still in place. But 49ers are still going after, trying to re-sign him. I know the 49ers without Aiyuk, because I think we all kind of just checked out thinking he was done.
Yeah.
I still think they're the best team in the NFC.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, Aiyuk is a big piece, and I think the more you talk...
I think the problem, the issue we know that Aiyuk has is that's such a stacked roster.
Yeah.
That he's just not getting his time.
And they just, like, not that he's not probably a top 20, top 10, 15 receiver in the league, potentially.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, I would say he's probably top 10.
I don't think his role is a big enough part to the...
In that offense.
Yeah,
for the money that
when
he
you have
wants.
Debo, Christian McCaffrey, they have a lot of weapons.
Yeah. Like, it's not that hard of a role to play when you're the third, fourth option on a team. And they just got the kid from Florida.
Which I think Brandon, he understands that. And, we're going to see here that he just wants to get paid. Knowing he's going to be the third or fourth option in this offense.
Yeah.
He's not going to take that pay. He wants to be compensated for what he knows he can produce. And we all know he can produce it. He wants that number two money, number one money. I don't even know what he's commanding right now. What is he?
I don't know what his...
Do we know what he's even asking for? Or he's just wanting a new deal?
I mean, he wanted a new deal. I think recently it's been... He hasn't exactly said, I demand a trade, but he's like, if you're not going to re-sign me, I want out. I'm not going to play on the current deal. But it's just like what his motivations are. Is it strictly money? I mean, I think it's more money than, hey, take a player-friendly or team-friendly deal, which he may be willing to take a team-friendly deal, just not team-friendly enough.
Yeah.
And, more than likely make it back to the Super Bowl being on this team and like just kind of help your legacy more out. Then if he goes to Pittsburgh, I mean, I'm sure they'll make the playoffs because they're always like, they're not going to have a losing season. They haven't had a losing season in forever. They're kind of in there with the Cowboys, like just that mediocre level when the Cowboys are going 8-8 every year. That I'm sure they'll make the playoffs, and they might make a run. But the problem with Pittsburgh is who's your quarterback? Like I don't know if Russell Wilson's the best option there or not.
Yeah.
And who knows? Justin Fields is still up in the air.
But I think that Aiyuk could. I wouldn't say pull a Tyreek Hill because Miami wasn't terrible.
Yeah.
But I think he could do what Tyreek did and go to a lesser team, make more money, and you're the number one option.
Yeah. I mean, if he goes anywhere outside of Kansas City, he's going to a lesser team. But, if you put him, like, let's just say you put him on the Cowboys, I know that's not even up in the air. I doubt San Francisco would even trade him to the Cowboys. But that's a good opportunity where you trade him to Philadelphia, Dallas. You trade him to teams that are kind of right there. Like, they're probably going to make the playoffs. But, I think Pittsburgh, you always obviously have to think, hey, it's in the AFC. That's good for the 49ers, but not good because you're like, yeah, you can make Pittsburgh better, but you still have to run through Kansas City. You still have to run through Buffalo. You still have to run through Cincinnati if Burrows is healthy.
So Brandon Ayuk's asking for $30 million a year.
Oh,
that's a lot of money for for what he produces on that team.
I don't have his numbers in front of me. I know CeeDee Lamb last year statistically was the second best receiver. You can make an argument that he might have been one of the best receivers with Tyreek Hill Jefferson was number 3, Tyreek Hill was number 1. So CeeDee Lamb, well, he's not asking, that's what he was offered, but CeeDee Lamb getting paid, the second highest paid receiver is not ridiculous. I wouldn't think it's ridiculous if, he had a contract to be the highest paid. That's kind of how it works now. Can you look up a list of like the highest paid receivers in general? Just to see where that would put him. $30 million. I want to say it's put him top 5.
I think
at $30 million. Because there's a couple of receivers.
That's where Tyreek Hill is
35.
Contracts. Tyreek Hill?
Or not Tyreek Hill, 30. I'm sorry. Yeah. Jefferson's 35.
Tyreek's 30.
30. So it'd put him right. Yeah, he's not Tyreek Hill.
With 65 guaranteed.
Well,
And it's not that simple. You can't just say, "Oh, he's paid the same as Tyreek." Different organization, different situations. When Tyreek Hill signed his contract a couple years ago, that's different. Tyreek Hill's probably starting to look at asking for more money at some point. But that's a lot of money, and I don't know. Like we keep thinking the 49ers can't
AJ
afford
Brown
this.
is the second highest now at $32 million. Amon-Ra St. Brown is $30.002 million.
Keep going down the list. I'll tell you where Brandon Aiyuk where I think he fits.
Breek Hill is $30 million. Jalen Waddle is $28 million. Man, those Miami Dolphins got some $60 million in receivers. Devontae Adams, $28 million.
Not Devontae Adams.
He's overpaid.
DJ Moore, $27.5 million.
Wait, what? Devontae
Well,
Adams?
Devontae Adams.
Devontae Adams, the Raiders.
Raiders? Oh, I thought you meant
No, Devontae Smith is Eagles.
Oh, that's Smith? Okay.
Yeah.
We'll get to him.
He's
He's in the top 10.
Devontae Smith is overpaid, but
DJ Moore is 27.5. I think that's a good spot for where he's
He just
at
hasn't had a
right
quarterback.
now. Cooper Kupp, 26.7. I think now that seems like a lot for him.
Well, he got hurt a lot the last couple years.
Devontae Smith, $25 million. It's probably where he's at. I mean, I think that's where the market
I think that's a good comparable. Yeah. Well, I think in Philadelphia, how he's performed, he's had some injuries. He hasn't, he's been the number 2 receiver in Philadelphia. Like we said, most teams he would probably be the number 1 receiver.
Well, here's the one we can put Brandon Aiyuk. We can put this in perspective. Debo Samuel is number 12 at $23.9 million.
So he wants.
You can't pay him more than you're paying
He
Debo
wants
Samuel.
to be paid more than their number 1 option that also plays running back.
I wonder what their numbers. I wonder what Debo Samuel's numbers are compared to Aiyuk last year. I mean, I get it's not as simple as it sounds ridiculous.
Debo's not your downfield option. Aiyuk is more of a down. It's hard to compare that. But when you're saying, "Hey, I want $30 million in this offense,"
what's Debo going to turn around and do if he gets paid $30 million?
I need more.
What is Debo at?
Essentially $24 million.
Okay, outside of the Debo contract or the Debo number, I'm thinking Aiyuk a fair deal would probably be about 25. I don't know if the 49ers can handle that. I keep thinking the 49ers eventually have to not be able to pay somebody. That's probably when Purdy comes up.
Yeah.
Purdy, they're going to have to pay Purdy. Like, you don't let – that's just how it works. You're going to not overpay, but you're going to pay those big contracts unless Purdy just doesn't have a good year. Now, to me, in my mindset, I don't cover the 49ers very much. Aiyuk, to me, is like kind of their second option. He is more the downfield option. Maybe he's worth $30 million. Like, he has that talent, and we're just going off numbers. And when you have Christian McCaffrey and Debo Samuel, your numbers are going to get split a little bit.
He's due to make $14 million this year.
I mean,
Aiyuk.
That's about
Pro Football Focus has Aiyuk above Debo Samuel in their top 32 receiver rankings for the next coming season. They have him at 8.
Talent-wise, I mean, Debo's getting up there. He's taking a lot of hits, doing more running back type stuff. But that's not, well, I don't think he's there. Debo's there yet at that age where you're going to give him a bigger contract
than
Debo.
This season, he's the 8th highest paid player on the 49ers.
Aiyuk?
With this year, he is the 8th. The $14 million for this season is the highest that he's ever made.
Yeah.
But think about all the pieces that they have on offense and defense. He's the
No, I agree. He's
4th best player that's currently getting paid. Purdy's still on his rookie. He's the 4th best player that is getting paid good money on their offense, and they still have multiple pieces on their defense. They have Bosa, Warner, what's his name?
They just re-signed Bosa last year.
Yeah.
And that pushed, that took, I want to say it was like 2 or 3 days before the season started.
Yeah, they got that deal done late. And
I mean, when you're talking
Chase,
about their top 4, the top 4 players, when you're just totaling up top 4 players in the offense, you're looking at about $80 million. And then the same, you look at your top players on defense, about $87 million. It totals $168 million. The 49ers are dishing
And
out.
you're probably going to have
That's
to play
60
Brock Purdy at the end of this year.
That's 66% of their salary.
If Brock Purdy has a really good season and they make it back to the Super Bowl or even an NFC Championship game,
Yeah.
I think Brock Purdy's asking for $60-70 million next year. Or in this offseason. I don't know Purdy, if he's going to hold out, what he's going to do.
I mean, the Niners have had to steal with him
I
the past
feel like
two
they
seasons.
could
What he's getting.
He's Mr. Irrelevant.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
he's
think they
making
could
$1
get
million.
Yeah, I think they could get it out easy, and he might not ask for as much, even though he.
I mean, it
probably
doesn't seem like he's the
realistically is
player,
a top quarterback.
But when it comes down to it, and you give people, your agents in your ear, your family in your ear, things change. You end up.
No, I don't think Brock Purdy. Honestly, I think I'm trying not to let my bias out. I'm not going to compare him to Dak. I think he's an above average quarterback. Like, look at Garoppolo.
Yeah.
Record wise, he did really well when he started because the 49ers are a very good team. Like, take away the quarterback, they're a really good team. Brock Purdy is a better quarterback for sure than Garoppolo. I think this team has just the same with Dak. I think Dak rookie year probably would be a below average quarterback, comparatively. Now I think he's above average quarterback now, but he had such a great team with an amazing offensive line, a team built for Tony Romo. You had Zeke rookie, which the best back in the league then. I think that's why Dak Prescott just came onto the scene all of a sudden. He was gifted this team, and he in an era where if you don't perform well your rookie year, you're probably not going to make it. You're destined for backup quarterback. That's just how it is. They're moving quarterbacks in and out, and Dak was able to get enough experience and playing time where now he's an above average quarterback, which I think a lot of quarterbacks you call busts or whatever could have really good careers if you give them that time to develop, and Dak was put in a situation he could develop. The same with Purdy. I think you're seeing that, and you see what he go 11-0 in his first 11 starts, which is similar to like when Garoppolo came to the 49ers. I think he was 20-5, and then you see them pushing him out the door. You're like, what the heck? I mean, you could see he wasn't that guy, but he has the record because it's a really well built team. And like we're talking with Aiyuk, the same is like it's hard to tell, is that the team or is Purdy really the guy? I think Purdy can have a great career. I don't think you put him on a bad team, he's just a terrible quarterback. But I think
you absolutely you straight up look at, the passes that he made, the plays that he made.
Yeah.
When he went down, when he was injured, that was in a playoff game, wasn't it?
The NFC Championship game
2 years
against
ago?
the Eagles. Yeah. And then you saw that they couldn't. The offense couldn't do anything.
No, they couldn't. They were done.
That's what I'm saying. It's not that Purdy's not good. You can't just
Purdy
plug
stayed in
a
that
quarterback.
game,
you can't just put Cooper Kupp on the 49ers and he's an amazing quarterback.
Yeah, he is going to be. He's going to have to get paid. They're going to have to pay him. I don't think they have another choice. And I think, was last season they traded Trey Lance to the Cowboys.
Yeah.
I think that shows that they're putting everything in to Brock Purdy.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And then, they saw with Garoppolo, they saw with Trey Lance, Garoppolo, you didn't see a whole lot of him except for, in New England when I guess it was when Brady was suspended for 4 games and he played, like, that's all you really saw of him. But with Brock Purdy, I mean, he was drafted 200, 275, 270, whatever the last pick is, Mr. Irrelevant. He was drafted there for a reason. But, I think it could be a whole nother topic about, drafting quarterbacks higher, from powerhouse schools where it's the same situation. Is I think their numbers get inflated for one thing when you play at Ohio State, Oklahoma, USC. We'll see with Caleb Williams.
J.J. McCarthy, I think, was one.
Yeah, I was surprised. Like, I didn't know that. I wasn't convinced he was an NFL quarterback, maybe. Like, I thought he's going to get a shot. He won the national championship, but he was a first-round pick.
We won't find out this season with his injury. He's out.
Yeah,
He's out for the season,
unfortunately out for the season. Opened some stuff up for Minnesota, which I think the Vikings weren't going to do much this year anyway. So what you're losing is some developmental time with you. Well, you know, I thought they were still going to be, have a top 10 pick next year anyways. Maybe this just puts them down. Now they're going to get a top 5 pick. Maybe they just help that out more.
I don't know.
Maybe they trade for a quarterback.
If McCarthy is going to be a key factor for them in the future, I don't know if I'm too concerned about him being down this season. Maybe even better for him because the mental side of this game, everything is going to slow down for him. Just learning the offense. There's a lot that's thrown on these guys from being drafted in April.
He has
more
of a situation to like Patrick Mahomes where you sit for a year.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Although he sat behind Alex Smith, a great leader quarterback. Who's their quarterback right now? I can't remember who's Minnesota's back. Darnold, Sam Darnold.
Oh.
Maybe you can learn from. He's a veteran. Maybe you can learn some stuff from Sam Darnold. Not talent.
And knowing that all just happened this week. I mean, they may make some moves. There's still going to be some shifts in contracts.
Come grab Trey Lance. Trade Trey Lance. I'm not convinced Trey Lance. Let's just roll out with Cooper Rush. Cooper Rush. It's like, come on, let's just get our 4th round pick back. Come on, Minnesota. Yeah, but I mean, you look at quarterbacks like Aaron Rodgers, even Tom Brady. I mean, he played at Michigan, but he wasn't like a super. Like they were more of a running team. Aaron Rodgers played at Cal. Like Peyton Manning did play at Tennessee, but you're not. He wasn't like this power. I mean, he was. He did win the Heisman, or he was up for a Heisman. But if you look at most of the quarterbacks, they're kind of like high tier programs, but it wasn't like they had the best talent around them. Maybe it was more like they had more situations to develop as opposed to you go from, Caleb Williams, although USC didn't do that well, but you go from playing with the best offensive line, one of the best receivers to now you go to a team who had the worst record last year, who may not have the best offensive line. That's where
like you said,
the transition
some of these guys,
comes.
The talent doesn't necessarily depict that when you're, coming from college to the pros. I think the rookies coming in are a lot more even than you might think. From number 1 overall pick to Mr. Irrelevant. I think that
for
talent
sure.
level is
I'm not talking like take the worst NFL team and best college team and play. No, I'm just talking about in college. Yeah,
when these guys come in, you're drafting Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams could be a bust. I mean, Justin Fields. You thought he's coming in, man. He's going to be. I don't want to call him a bust yet, but he hasn't performed. He hasn't lived up to what you thought you were getting. Yeah,
but you go when you play at Ohio State, Alabama, whatever. What your receiving core is ranked, what your offensive line is ranked, is severely different when you're drafted top 5 overall. Now
some
Brock
of the competition
Purdy,
you face. I mean, you're facing a lot of guys that are under 20 years old.
Yeah.
You're now coming in and facing guys 25 to 30 in their peak prime performance of their life.
Yeah.
When you have guys that are just coming out of high school that you're beating up on, like, it is different. There's a lot of development that changes.
And I think Brock Purdy was the exact opposite. He goes from average talent to now above average talent coming to the 49ers and just kind of getting thrust in that situation.
Some guys are just built for the NFL. Like college doesn't lend as well to them as the pro game does to their game.
Yeah. And
Tom Brady. Yes, he was at Michigan. Yes, he was a starting quarterback. But
it wasn't an aired out offense where he was looked at as
he wasn't running that team like he did in the Patriots,
And Dak Prescott, Mississippi State, like he had a lot of talent around him, but he got lost in playing against SEC teams. They're ranked, and then you go to the Cowboys, who have the best offensive line, who had a lot of weapons. And you're like, man, Dak Prescott might have jumped up here and like, man, this is a little easier than the SEC playing some teams.
I mean, of the top quarterbacks, can we think of any right now that were big-time powerhouses in college that were
Ohio State quarterbacks, Alabama quarterbacks, and I was seeing with Young, Bryce Young, Burrow might be the one, yeah.
That,
but he has his college quarterback too. He has Jamar Chase or wide receiver Jamar Chase.
Well, and that's probably a little bit of a transition with these younger.
We've seen it
too, with these younger coaches, the mindset of these staffs. I mean, a lot of NFL teams are running more like a. I mean, I guess Tua is one you could throw up there. I mean, he had a short stint at Alabama.
What's his name in Houston?
C.J. Stroud.
C.J. Stroud.
Yeah.
Hurts
Again,
for a little
that's
bit.
a young coach, a young program. These younger coaches, that's, we talked about this last week with the Cowboys, is you went out and got your coach. Well, this guy's been in the league for, 30 years?
Jalen Hurts is
these younger
one,
coaches
but he's
run
starting
completely
to,
different.
He's starting to go down,
But you
I
see
think.
the opposite all the time. You see the Johnny Manziels, honestly, the Baker Mayfields, the Justin Fields that come out and they're top Heisman winners, and they come out and one can't make it out of his rookie year. The other has made it, but he's been a below average quarterback, and Justin Fields is realistically could be a running back this season.
Yeah, I think Johnny Manziel's interesting because there was nothing about his play on the field that could kind of point to, he only, underthrowing receivers, overthrowing receivers, and maybe the receivers correcting it, making him look better. There wasn't a lot of that. There was a lot of off the field stuff. There was his height, there was a lot of that. But you go from running around, and A&M wasn't even the most talented team there, at the time. He was upsetting Alabama. It wasn't like he had the best receivers and
I think that's what he was looked at though, is he was a gamer. He was going to go in and he could beat the top teams.
That's why I think he's one of the biggest busts.
It didn't transition into the NFL.
If when he went to Cleveland, he was talking about in his documentary, he did not watch one single second of film. But I don't believe that if he would have watched film, he would have, binge. That's one of the discrepancies. That's why it's terrifying to be an NFL GM. Mm-hmm. It's lots of times you're like, hey, you can point to Baker Mayfield had a ton of talent. He was going to succeed no matter what. He was going to go number one no matter what. It's hard to tell, how's he going to be with inferior talent because unless the guys get hurt and you see him play with lesser talent, you're not going to. And even backups are still pretty good. Johnny Manziel's a scary. He just night and day in the NFL. Just couldn't. He's making ridiculous throws at A&M, running around everybody, and then he gets to the pros and just looked oblivious. Yeah. There wasn't okay, he started off well and then trailed out nothing. He started off bad, showed a couple of decent games, and then
a lot of that also was Cliff Kingsbury.
Well, this is true.
Probably one of the top offensive coordinators in the world. I would put him up against any offensive coordinator in the entire world at any level of football.
Yeah.
Cliff Kingsbury is the most innovative and best. I don't like him in the NFL. I didn't like him that. I didn't think that was a good fit for him because I think there's an NFL game. There's a certain, you can inch towards college and there's some things they're doing more. There's
just
still an NFL
Johnny
game
Manziel
that is very,
not watching film,
very basic,
and
very
being able to succeed.
College football's completely different. It's a wild, wild west. You can do and do everything. It doesn't always work in the NFL. You put him in college football, Cliff Kingsbury, absolutely. He could take any team to the national championship.
Him and Manziel they didn't make it to the playoffs that year, but they had crazy runs against top ranked teams, Alabama.
And he goes in the Cotton Bowl. It beats Oklahoma that year that he won the Heisman.
They had 3 draft picks on that team because it was Myles Garrett, Mike Evans.
I was going to say
Johnny Manziel.
Manziel had Mike Evans, but not a ton. It wouldn't be the top rated talent.
He had Mike Evans and Ryan Tannehill.
Ryan
Swope too, but
yeah, I think
after college he didn't do anything.
It's kind of like the man. Now I'm drawing a blank on his name. Florida quarterback.
Tebow.
Tim
Yeah,
Tebow,
arguably the best college quarterback in history.
If Johnny Manziel would have stayed in college, he would have made more money than he ever made on an NFL contract.
He'd have been suspended. I don't. It's kind of like Jim Harbaugh leaving.
Maybe.
I don't.
He may not have played. Yeah,
but if he stays in plays,
because you're talking about he only played 2 college seasons.
Yeah,
at Texas A&M, he still had time to play. He would have made more money. He would have probably gone down as the best college quarterback, maybe college player.
Yeah.
to ever play the game.
That was one of the best seasons. He was ridiculous. Watching him and the main game I watched was the Cotton Bowl.
You even looked at that Texas A&M team up to his freshman year, a very bland, very vanilla, even if you went into College Station looks completely different today.
Kyle Stadium. That's what the house that Manziel renovated.
House that Johnny built. Yeah,
because they were just getting millions and millions. Is after they beat Alabama that year.
Yeah.
And he was having an interview with Shannon Sharpe.
He absolutely helped put them on the map on a national level. It was a big school. Don't get me wrong. Don't take this wrong. That
A&M is a powerhouse. Yes, it has been a powerhouse.
He put them on a different level with boosters and money and national attention.
They have
that nobody else could ever do.
Fourth or fifth highest capacity stadium in college football after they built
when Kyler Murray was recruited, he went there out of Allen High School. Never really that was Johnny became, or was what you hoped Kyler Murray could have been for them.
Kyler Murray's team was 8 times better than any team that Johnny ever played with.
Yeah,
he had Hollywood Brown, he had CeeDee. They had probably one of the best defenses at the Big 12 for sure.
Yeah,
probably in college football.
That's not saying much though. Big 12 doesn't.
Yeah,
at least back then. It was like
that Oklahoma team was.
It was one of the best teams in the country, and they didn't really do anything with it. Johnny took a team that was not good and had no reason to be playing Alabama.
That team's offense wasn't. You didn't expect that offense to be there. Defensively, I think they were pretty solid, which helped.
Yeah.
But offensively, you didn't have the big names. They came out. That's why it was so spectacular, because they came out of nowhere with guys. Mike Evans, he was, I think, a freshman at the same time. Is that?
Yeah, him and Johnny Manziel were the same.
Yeah, so you had a young guy. You had these young guys that became superstars. And, obviously Mike Evans goes to the NFL and is, becomes a big star there as well for a couple years.
He's had 1,000.
He's an absolute
yards
solid
every
receiver.
year he's been in the league. He's probably for sure Hall of Famer.
Yeah, back to how much Johnny Manziel was making. He talked with Shannon Sharpe, and he said in an interview, and Shannon asked him if NIL was a thing back then, how much money you think you'd make. He didn't even hesitate. He said $20 million easy. It's not, because he's like, I was kind of making close to that before. He's like, and then making his family had oil money, and
I think after his freshman year, it would have been even more than that.
He was hanging out with LeBron James and everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had to lie and say his family was rich with oil money or something, and they didn't have anything.
Yeah, just to make it. It'd be like anybody that met you if you won the lottery. Nobody would know. You just go and say, "Oh, my business blew up," or "I did an investment here." You wouldn't tell people you just fell into money. Look what I did. I worked into it.
He didn't really fall into it. He kind of thrust himself into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure, and he just didn't care.
Yeah.
I don't care if that's against her. He if you watch the documentary, his buddy was basically like his manager. Okay, this is just how we do it. Go sign autographs. They were taking He was taking pictures with stacks of money.
Yeah.
And when it's against the rules to make money as a college athlete, it's like, if you can't even not post, hanging out with LeBron James, you're gonna do. You're like, hey, you're a star quarterback. But posting hotel rooms, just money. It's like, come on, you got to be able to handle it. And luckily for him, if you want to say luckily he's.
Seems to have straightened his life out.
Well, he's able to do interviews and stuff where he didn't just blow all the money. I think he's doing well off. We'll continue. I guess we're going to talk all football this episode. Nicolas Cage. If you've seen, I posted a picture on social media. If you can go check it out. Nicolas Cage set to play NFL icon John Madden in David O. Russell's biopic. Now, I assume Nicolas Cage was wearing a bodysuit in that photo. I don't know that you just gain a bunch of weight to be able to play.
That. Yeah.
I think Christian Bale gained 80 pounds to play Dick Cheney in a movie, but it's so easy. Just wear a bodysuit. But I was surprised when I heard this, but then I saw that photo. I'm like, he kind of does look like John Madden a little bit. With makeup, you can do anything, but Cage is set to portray John Madden, the storied football coach and sports commentator, in a drama from Amazon MGM Studios, to be directed by Russell, the filmmaker behind Silver Linings Playbook and American Hustle. So I have confidence this is going to be a good football movie as well, because those were good football movies also. But this is not a biopic of the man, in the typical way, nor a sports drama, a genre Russell took on with boxing movie The Fighter. Rather, Madden is in part, according to sources, a video game movie. It's the origin story of Madden NFL, one of the biggest video game franchises of all time. And I'm sure there's lots of, information about Madden's life, coaching, commentating.
I personally don't know, but do we really know how Madden, did John Madden actually push to do this, or was he approached by it? I really don't know the story.
I mean, there were video games before Madden, like Tecmo Bowl and things like that. I don't know.
I mean, I can remember one of the first Madden. I don't remember if it was the first or one of them.
I remember 99.
You could get
Madden
a player
99.
and do training. Remember, and it was you were running. You had to hit the buttons, and your guys running the 40-yard dash, and you're.
I remember games like Quarterback Club and stuff like that, but I think Nintendo 64. It was a blue game, like the cartridge was blue. You've seen Nintendo 64 games, So it was like you put it in the top, and it was blue because most of the games were gray. I just remember it was blue. I think it was Madden 99, maybe Madden 2000, something around there. That's the first Madden game I remember.
I remember it on the Super Nintendo.
A Madden game?
Yeah, they had it was 97, 98.
Okay. When did he become
maybe
a commentator?
96? I don't remember.
He became a commentator
one
in the
of the first
mid-90s,
ones,
right?
he was the picture of him commentating on the cover.
Yeah, and I remember him, the opening thing of the video game is him busting through a wall or whatever. When did he become a commentator? Pat Summerall. I want to say mid-90s, maybe early 90s.
Was it not in the 80s? I don't know.
Was it in the? I was born
Late
in
80s?
I was born in 1989. Guys, commenters, be careful, or not be careful, be nice. But I want to say it was hey, he's obviously a different breed. I know watching the Madden documentary that a lot of people weren't happy with it because you didn't have a lot of former coaches or players become commentators. Like now you have your professional, grew up, went to school, commentate, sports broadcasting, very professional, had a million jobs. You have that guy, and then you have the former player. You have it, Tony Romo, Tom Brady, John Madden, Al Michaels, and doing with
Pat Summerall.
Pat Summerall. You have that's the and I think Madden broke that mold where you have the player and you have the professional broadcaster. And you had I think Joe Buck's father is kind of who talked about that and was kind of welcoming to John Madden about, because John Madden's going there I don't know how to do this. I have the football knowledge. He has obviously the personality and the charisma, which I think is probably why you go with him for Madden. I think that's bold at the time. Hey, we're going to pick a commentator and you're going to be the star of this. Mm-hmm. And we're going to we're going to name the video game after you. And hopefully we get a lot of that.
CBS was who broke that mold and gave him the opportunity.
Yeah, Madden and Summerall. Because really, I don't remember a whole lot of Madden Summerall games. It was, before my time. It was more Al Michaels and John Madden was kind of I remember them splitting up. That was a big deal. And then, or I guess they split it. I think Madden just retired. I think he was at that Al Michaels still. He retired because they were Monday Night Football, and then they went to Sunday night. I don't know if Madden ever made that transition to Sunday night.
I don't think so.
Al Michaels just went to Sunday night.
That's something
after.
Landen completely missed is a John Madden
calling the turducken. That's
just a Monday Night Football game.
He's just ridiculous. That's why they have where they can draw on the screen and just hey, circle this guy, move this. That's what he pushed for, so he would just scribble all over the screen and replays and hey, this is what's going to happen. He's going to go there, and he would just sometimes they'll watch this guy. They'll circle that. He kind of pushed for that. He's the one who did that, and he would make some crazy calls. And I think a lot of even commentators today kind of molded their style off of John Madden.
Very much like you would see from what Tony Romo did in his first couple
Tony
years.
Romo's calling the plays out.
But it's just Tony Romo has some crazy phrases, and I think Tony Romo hits about 60-70% of the time where you're what are you saying? And then sometimes it's kind of funny. And John Madden would just say ridiculous things, and maybe at the time people may have not liked it, but now it's classic. Where he just went off on tangents and talked about like I mentioned the turducken Thanksgiving, and they were talking about no, they were doing a Thanksgiving game and talking about a turkey, and he's no, this is what you do. You get a turducken, which is chicken, duck and a chicken and a turkey or whatever. And then they started doing that, like where John Madden would take a big leg off of a turducken and eat it during the game, or, they do a little, photo op. But John Madden's just a crazy guy. And he really wasn't he was only a coach for like 10 years or something. He retired really early and has like one of the highest percentage record-wise, like win percentage in history for the Raiders. He was a coach in the 70s and then won a Super Bowl. So I assume they're going to have somebody play Al Davis in this movie as well. I don't know how deep they're going to get in his past or if they're going to start right before the video games, but that is interesting. I don't remember talking about that, them talking about that in Madden, how it kind of came to be. I assume, John Madden, kind of an older guy in the 90s. I don't think he says, hey, can I be, the star on one of those Madden games? That's probably when a lot of, I remember playing, I don't remember which game it was, but it was on Nintendo or Super Nintendo. There were no commentators. It's just at the beginning you would hear the ref talk or whatever, and it's kind of just straight from above. It wasn't Tecmo Bowl, the one I'm thinking of. But that's probably where they get the idea of, hey, let's make it like, that's when now you play Madden or college football or any video game, any sports video game, you're playing from the perspective of watching it on TV. You have broadcasters, you have graphics popping up. And I think that's when it started, and they said, hey, we need commentators. Who's going to commentate? Why the hell not John? Like, I think if they did that now, you might say, why wouldn't Tony Romo commentate? I don't know. I think Tony Romo's say anything controversial. It's kind of like what John Madden was back. A little crazy. Former, he was probably the most prolific former coach player at the time. So he was able to give you more of those insights and the X's and O's, like Tony Romo does now, or just any player in general. You get that color commentator vibe. But Nicolas Cage playing him, I think, like I said, I was surprised, but if you think about it, like, what's Nicolas Cage made famous? Like, he has a lot of terrible movies. Like, they're supposed to be terrible. They're like guilty pleasure crazy. And he's had
museum.
Yeah, I mean, he's a star. Made a time, like, look at Con Air, Gone in 60 Seconds, which is just such a weird, I think it's supposed to be weird. National Treasure. He's a goofy, out of the wall guy, but that's kind of like what John Madden was. Yes. He's like, now we look at John Madden as John Madden as this icon, but things he says that made him famous, they could have gone the opposite direction if people don't react the same way. So Nicolas Cage might actually be one of the better choices because personality-wise, he might mesh a little bit, and I think Nicolas Cage can pull off saying some of those wacky things and crazy things, and if that is a bodysuit, like, I don't know. I don't even think they started filming, so I don't know. Maybe Nicolas Cage did gain a bunch of weight. But from that picture that I posted, it looks much a younger John Madden. So maybe they are going to start like when he was a coach, and because that's obvious. I mean, he was a player. I don't know if he played in the NFL, but that was what he was known for, was coaching before he became a broadcaster. All right, guys. Thanks for watching this episode of Leadoff. Thank you for tuning in however you are listening. Hit the like button if you liked what we talked about. If not, hit it twice, and don't forget to subscribe. With Tony and Landen, I'm Ashton. Have a great weekend.